they were part of. Thousands of locals from Kenya, especially from around Taita, Taveta and the Savo circuit bordering Tanzania, were conscripted into the war to face Germans just across the border. What remains today are battlefields. Mark Namaswa takes us to the warfields of Taita, Taveta.
The lush plains and the distant hills, a short distance away from the Sarova Taita Hills Game Lodge, do not betray signs of perhaps one of the biggest battlefronts local communities here have seen in history. However, much of World War I action took place here. Africans finding themselves in the midst of the chaos as soldiers, but mostly as porters in the war. We come across Fort Mwashoti, one location the British chose in their campaign against the German approach from the south in Tanganyika.
Basically, it was meant to boost the forward line. They would come in here before they are moved to Maktau.
Mwashoti itself is a local corruption of the word more shots, as the British solidified their defenses mostly in the 1914 to 1916 period.
The Germans would approach from actually behind me, which is towards Tanzania, at Kilimanjaro area, Taveta. They'll be coming towards Voi. And the British would be coming from the Voi area.
Taking no chances, the British also sought reinforcements from as far south as South Africa. General Smuts and his troops were needed since General Maleson's disastrous approach to war needed a replacement. A railway line branching off the Kenya-Uganda Railway came in handy. But on September 29, 1914, a month after World War I kicked off, Germans decided to cut off the British East Africans' main artery in the war. They came for mile 27 section.
It is exactly 27 miles from Voi. And this is, if you see that culvert there, that's where the Germans wanted to bomb the railway. But they didn't succeed because the British came in and there was this hand-to-hand battle, combat around here.
In this battle alone, Germans initially lost just 3 of their own soldiers and 30 askaris, but later the British also lost 20 soldiers. Germans retreated, forgetting to bomb the culvert. And German General Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck lost a great opportunity to change the tide in the East African War. The Taita Taveta countryside is punctuated by hills and savanna to the south. In this case, both Germans and British knew that control of key positions such as hills and water points will give them access to surveillance and communication. Points of elevation such as Picket Hill, Kasigau and Salaita Hill became key in the war. Germans went for Salaita Hill and dug in, making it a wartime slaughterhouse, and on February 12, 1916, a combined British and South African force suffered at the hands of Germans under Major George Kraut.
It was critical to a point that on several occasions, like 3 occasions, the British attacked them up here, but they could not dislodge the Germans. The Germans would actually encircle the troops and now fight them from both sides, from the top and from the rear.
Further northwest sits Taveta. It is much closer to the German administrative town of Moshi in Tanzania. Overlooking the Taveta town is Maho Hill. Germans constructed a lookout tower here in their short stay here.
The first side walikuwa wakiangalia hii first, walikuwa wakiangalia Salaita. The other side were looking to from Lake Jipe. The other side ni Riata Hills. And this side ilikuwa ni Taveta police station at that time.
At the former Taveta police station, it is reported that Hugh Lafontaine, the British DC at Taveta, fired the first shot through this window. What men are command was one Frederick Broker, a German officer.
The gentleman there saw people on horseback, and remember that time this was all bush, and they looked like enemies, and he released immediately the first shot, and this is what now makes the significance of this building being very important.
His tombstone at the Taveta Military Cemetery indicates he was killed on 15th August 1914. Other accounts report that an African askari was actually the first casualty at the Kenya-Tanzania border. Fortunately for most African troops involved in pain, no memory, no graveyard, no tombstone exists in their remembrance. And in their memory, this was set up, and part of the message reads that when you go home, tell them of us, and say for your tomorrow, we gave our today. The British World War I campaign in East Africa ended about 10 days after the November 11, 1918 armistice was signed between the Allied forces and the German-led Central Powers. The German general in charge of the war in East Africa, Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck, also known as the Lion of Africa, surrendered in Abercorn in northern Rhodesia, now modern-day Zambia. Mark Namaswa, KTN News.